All right, guys. Today's lesson is something that I personally enjoy, and that is the state of Wisconsin's boundaries. How did Wisconsin end up looking like a mitten? Okay, so let's get right to it. So this is a lot of the background. Originally, Wisconsin's area was called the Northwest, part of the Northwest Territory, and Britain had been really the first country to, I guess, colonize it. This is obviously not taking into effect Native Americans. And they built forts in the area starting back in the 1790s. The British capture most of this in the War of 18, or they hold it in the War of 1812, this region. And four different states claimed parts of the Northwest Territory: Virginia, New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. What those early states would say is all the land, let me go to the map here, is all the land west of their border just continued on indefinitely, and that they would control it. So if you look at this map, you can see the areas ceded by Massachusetts and Connecticut. These were areas that, I mean, look at Massachusetts said they owned the lower half of Michigan and a big chunk of the lower half of Wisconsin. You can't do that. Okay. So the federal government had to step in and say, no, 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 you're getting rid of these land claims. Okay. So War of 1812, there's quite a few battles in and around the Great Lakes region. The British are leaving their forts there after our American Revolution, partially because our government is having trouble paying back its debts to British businesses. That's a whole nother story about the failing of the Articles of Confederation. Okay, so this is a bunch of different ideas. Okay, Wisconsin could have been so many different states. It's weird. Okay, Thomas Jefferson said, let's just cut everything up into blocks. I'm sorry, but the map would look so funny. So, Northwest Ordinance bans slavery in the region. If your territory got 60,000 people, you could apply for statehood. So that's a pretty small number. So the first state's Ohio. Um, so now Wisconsin's in the Indiana territory. Then Indiana becomes a state. Now we're in the Illinois territory. Illinois becomes a state. Now we're in the Michigan territory. And the boundaries start to get weird. So you can see the Indiana territory, all that big red section, and then the Illinois territory. So, and look at Indiana technically might have owned part of the UP. How weird would that have been? So Illinois and Indiana become states. So then Wisconsin is part of the Michigan territory. Michigan was unhappy about losing Chicago because Chicago, the bottom part of the map here, was actually originally part of the Michigan territory, but they wanted to make sure that Illinois got access to the Great Lakes. So they give that chunk of land to them. So Michigan's a little unhappy about that. So what do they do for Michigan? They give them the Upper Peninsula. Okay. Because you see where Illinois is, you see this big chunk of land in the northern part of Illinois where Chicago is. That was part of the Michigan territory. And Michigan's unhappy. They're losing that. So they're going to give them the UP. So we're still part, we were part of the Michigan territory. Now we're called Wisconsin territory. However, only 22,000 people live here, with only 11,000 plus east of the Mississippi. Burlington, Wisconsin, and Dubuque, Iowa are the first proposed capitals. But Madison is selected. There's some secret deals going on, but it shows you here what it's starting to kind of look like. Okay. Now look at all that region in Minnesota we could have had. Nope. So we start figuring out what to do. We're going to start subdividing the land. I'm not going to get too much into the acres and townships, but this is what it looks like. So they make Iowa. Native Americans give up their land. Border with Canada had to be figured out. Our population increases, so we apply for statehood. This is what we're going to look like. And they say, no, no, no. We need to give some of that land. That's just surveying. We need to give some of that land to Minnesota, so Minnesota has access to the Great Lakes. So we lost the whole arrowhead to Minnesota. And that is why eventually Wisconsin looks like a mitten.